Hey, I just wanted to say a quick apology to everyone who's watching this video. Um, I didn't expect it to be 55 minutes long. Yes, it's a very long one where I only talk about 10 movies, which is crazy. So, yeah, apologies for the length of this one. I know it's a long one. If you all want to just skip through it, go right ahead. I don't expect anyone to sit there for 55 minutes and watch me ramble. I will pass it now over to me from an hour ago. And cheers. And so we're back for part two of my personal top 25 movies of all time. The last video was, what was it? It was 25 to 10, which were... I've put them away now, so I'm not going to get them out again. But good response on that video. So, yeah, this is part two. This is the top 10. This is the last... This is actually in order. The 25 to 10 weren't in order. They were just 15 films that I absolutely loved, that I would consider to be in my top 25, I guess. And then these are my top 10 favourite movies of all time. My top 5 has always been set. So I've always had these 5 films in my top 5. But these other 5 have always swapped places throughout the years of me loving these films. Like, sometimes one film might be higher up the list, the other film might be lower down the list. It all depends on how I feel at the time and what I think of that film. But nevertheless, these films are always in the top 10. So, yeah. So, one thing I did want to point out was... in the last video, there was a comment made by someone to say that I didn't know film if these were my top 25 films. Without being a dickhead and just going on a rant about people, I do know film. I am very well versed in film. I'm just not interested in the type of films that people generally considered to be the greatest films of all time, like Citizen Kane or Gone with the Wind, or some like Ingmar Bergman type of movies. Those type of films don't really appeal to me. I'm more of a genre person, so I love action movies, I love horror movies, I love science fiction. That is what I love. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you love these movies that you technically class as cinema or film, the greatest films of all time, then that's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to take away that from you, because that's your opinion. Like, you shouldn't be taking away what my opinion is on my favourite films. It's a personal selection of movies. Film is subjective no matter how you look at it. If someone likes, I don't know, Wes Anderson movies, but they don't like George Romero movies, then that's fair. That's fair. Same as if someone like me, I love George Romero movies. I'm not a fan of Wes Anderson films, but I'm not gonna have a go or make a rude comment to someone's taste in films because it doesn't align with theirs. But like I said, this is it's a personal countdown of my favourite films, not your favourite films. If you want to see a countdown of your favourite films, do a video on your favourite films. I mean, what I love about doing this video thing and doing and just like film groups in general, is the debate that goes back and forth and the healthy conversation. I mean, you can have very healthy conversation about cinema with people if they are of the mind that film is subjective. That's where I come from. Like, I will gladly have a conversation with someone about classic Hollywood cinema or slasher movies from the 1980s, or the boom of zombie cinema, or time travel movies. And I will also talk to you about classic Hollywood, like westerns and like musicals and stuff. I'll talk about Japanese cinema. I'll talk about Asian kung fu cinema, the Hong Kong action cinema of the mid to late 80s, like the John Woo stuff and the Choi Hark stuff and the Benny Chan stuff. From it was a bit later with Benny Chan, but I'm versed in a lot of it. I'm versed in like Ozploitation movies. I'm versed in weird, bizarre Russian science fiction movies. I know film. I've been studying it for 40 years. But just because I don't have the same taste in cinema as someone else does, that doesn't really give them the right to belittle your choices. But that's all I want to say. So, this is the top 10. This is the last 10 films. These are the films that I consider my favourite films of all time. Sorry for that little rant at the beginning. That comment did kind of throw me off a little bit. I know it's mostly just a troll, but when your knowledge is questioned, even though I've made countless videos where I've discussed movies not in detail, but my knowledge is there. I'm not saying I'm a film scholar or anything, but I know my shit when it comes to certain film genres and stuff and the history of cinema. But top 10, number 10. This is my number 10 film of all time. And the reason I chose this film is because I remember seeing it in the cinema. It was 1996. This was a huge movie when it came out in 1996. And I don't think anyone had really seen anything like it since maybe Close Encounters of the Third Kind or Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. Such huge, massive event movie. Yeah, I know in 1993 Jurassic Park came out. And that was massive. That was in the cinemas for months because it was such a good film. But this was like huge scale, like huge epic scale alien invasion extravaganza. And it's Independence Day. I love Independence Day. Like I said, I remember seeing it in the cinema in 1996. Then I had a VHS copy of it on one Easter. It came in a blue case with sort of lenticular like card stuck in front of the inlay, the sleeve. And yeah, I mean, what can I say about Independence Day? I love it. I love the score by David Arnold. I think it's incredible. David Arnold also did a very, very good score for Stargate as well, which is again directed by Roland Emmerich. This was also directed by Roland Emmerich, and both films were co-written by Emmerich and Dean Devlin, who went on to, I think he did Geostorm with Gerard Butler. It's not a great movie, but it's entertaining enough. It's sort of in the same vein as Emmerich's more later solo stuff, like what were the film like 2012 and The Day After Tomorrow. But I don't think he's ever beaten Independence Day, because this is such a truly massive scaled movie. Like it's just so much fun to watch. Again, like I said in the last video, films like Pulp Fiction or Django Unchained or Inglourious Basterds that you're flicking through the channel. I know I'm not quoting, but I'm referencing only Tarantino films here. But these are the type of films that you can just flick through the channels and find it and watch it halfway through. Independence Day is one of those movies, and I just love it. I mean, it's got such a good cast in it. Will Smith, Bill Pullman, Jeff Goldblum, Adam Baldwin, Vivica Fox. Who else? Jesus Christ. Mary McDonald, Judd Hirsch. Just such a huge cast. Randy Quaid is in it. I mean, the sad thing is, we had to wait 20 years for this pile of shit. Independence Day Resurgence, which is a god-awful movie. And I don't think even Roland Emmerich likes it. I do believe he went on record saying that they rushed the movie to get it out, and it's just not a good film at all. But just such a great cast in this, and this has got the restored, extended, and theatrical cuts of the movie. This is not the 4K. I don't know whether or not it's worth buying the 4K, seeing as I have this edition. This is the special edition. It's 2 discs, so it has the bonus disc on Blu-ray and the DVD, well, and the films on a second Blu-ray disc. I don't know if you can see. But yeah, I absolutely love Independence Day. The moment you see the ship bursting through the clouds over New York City, and it's just lit up with fire as it comes through the clouds, and all the people in New York are just looking up and gasping at this huge spaceship that's just entering the atmosphere. When I was the age I was, I was maybe 13, I think it was, and just that blew my mind. And then the rest of the film is just incredibly fun, and there's some great lines in there. Will Smith's really good in it, considering it was his first big movie post, I suppose, post Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I know he'd done a few films. I think he did Bad Boys the year before, but Bad Boys wasn't on the same scale as this. But like Independence Day was massive. Like, it was a huge movie, and it made box office bank, which is like what you'd expect a huge disaster alien invasion movie to do when there's not really anything else of this kind that's coming out at the time. So yeah, that number 10 is Independence Day, because I absolutely love this film, and yeah, I kind of really want to watch it again now. So like the moment where you hear the radio signal in the astronomer's, I suppose, office or control room, and then it cuts to Eric Avari, and he answers the phone. He's like, if this is an insanely beautiful woman, I don't want to know. And then you've got REM's The End of the World as We Know It, foreshadowing the events of the film to come. Yeah, it's just such a good movie. Such a good movie. Number 9 is a film that I was brought up on. This was the film, and I think I've mentioned this before, that sort of desensitized me to gore and violence. Even though it's not an inherently violent film, it's got like the rating on the back. The film's a PG, but the rating on the back is it says it contains mild violence, and it does sort of contain mild violence, but it also contains sort of grim scenes as well, specifically more towards the end. But it's George Pal's The Time Machine. I basically watched this religiously as a child. And there was a moment in the film where Morlock is pushed against a rock when George is in the tunnels, the Morlock tunnels, and he hits his head, and then a load of blood and whatever it was comes out of his mouth and down onto his chest. And my mum would always say, you don't need to be scared, you don't need to worry, it's only tomato ketchup. So for my entire life, every time I see like gore or blood or something like that, my brain is just instantly going, it's alright, it's only ketchup. Even though I know it's not ketchup, it's a mixture of probably like corn syrup and red food dye and like movie magic and stuff. But yeah, I just love this film, and like the way it opens with Russell Garcia's fantastic score, specifically when you think like this was made in 1960, and the score that this accompanies this film doesn't really sound like any other score from a Hollywood film of the time. I mean, this has like recognizable motifs and stuff like that, and it really works beautifully with the film. It has moments of intensity, and then there's quieter moments, especially where George is talking with Weena. Then there's the bit where all the Eloi are being summoned to the Morlock temple through the big like megaphone sort of things on top of the monument that is set there to get the Eloi to go inside. I suppose they're using them in the sort of tunnel, sort of caverns to keep things going. It's a long story, but the reason I love this film is because it is one of those films that like you do remember watching as a child, and it sticks with you because you watch it over and over again. And then you remember like the performances of people like Rod Taylor. Rod Taylor, I only really know him as George from The Time Machine, even though Rod Taylor's been in fucking loads of movies. He was even in Inglourious Basterds. He played Winston Churchill. And I think that was probably one of the last films he made. That and maybe a film about a giant crow. I can't remember. I think it was a Sci-Fi Channel original. But then you've got Alan Young. Alan Young is so good as his best friend. Philby. Like, Alan Young. I didn't know until years later that Alan Young was the voice of Scrooge McDuck. And now every time I see, like, the earlier version of DuckTales, not the David Tennant one that they did recently, but like the late 80s, early 90s DuckTales, and Scrooge McDuck is speaking, all I think about now is Philby from The Time Machine. And it just fills me with joy and stuff. Every time I watch this film, it takes me back to when I was a child. And then I would sit on the sofa with my mum and we'd watch The Time Machine. And like, it's just such a good film. And I think it's one that I've always had on some form of physical media. I remember we recorded it off the television, then we bought a VHS copy of it, then I bought the DVD, then I bought a US Blu-ray, and then I finally bought this version, which is the HMV Premium Collection. And I do love this movie. In fact, I was checking because I had a few delivered today. And I wanted to see. No, the ones that I had delivered today all had posters in them. But this just comes with these little postcard things. And, man, how much would I love to have a poster of The Time Machine with the original classic artwork. I try to enjoy the remake of The Time Machine, which was directed by Simon Wells, who I think was the great-grandchild of H.G. Wells. I just can't. I don't get on with it. I just don't get on with it. I mean, it doesn't open the same as the film. I mean, I think this film, having listened and read, well, I've listened to the audiobook of H.G. Wells' Time Machine, and I've read the Time Machine. This original 1960s version kind of follows it in the same. It opens the same. It opens the same with like George inviting scholars and friends from universities and stuff like that to come to his house on New Year's Eve. I think it's 1899, and then he like vanishes and then comes back, and he's got the little time machine in the box and everything. It's such a great movie, and I highly recommend checking it out. Yes, it's an old film, but for 1960, it's a phenomenal movie. Then we have, and I showed this in What the Fuck Did I Buy? There's another film that I absolutely love, and it's a film that I've loved since I saw on VHS, I think it was, in like 1998 or 1997 or something like that. I had the soundtrack, which is banging, by the way. The soundtrack is so good. It's got a lot of like bands on there, like L7 and Bush, and Ice-T is on there. Who else is on there? Portishead. It's just such a great soundtrack. But it's Tank Girl. I've mentioned this multiple times in previous videos how much I adore Tank Girl. I think Laurie Petty's best role to date. So good in this. I mean, because I suppose this was my first real introduction to Laurie Petty. Every time I see her in a different film, like she's in Point Break as well, I see Rebecca, Tank Girl. I see her in Free Willy as well. She's in Free Willy with Michael Madsen. But again, such a great, fun movie, even if it did bomb and it was critically panned. Like, Tank Girl's fucking awesome. I love it. So that's my number 8 film of all time. My number 7 film of all time is an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, yeah. It is Conan the Barbarian. I friggin' love Conan the Barbarian. I've watched this so many times. I remember first seeing it, again, like with Tremors and with Mad Max. It was late night ITV here in the UK. Watched it on it wasn't a black and white TV. It was more of it was a 14-inch color TV we'd upgraded, and I just love this film. I've got this version. I've got the UK DVD Steelbook. I have a Korean DVD, and I have a 20th Century Fox sort of, I guess, budget release DVD of this, and I really want to get hold of the Arrow 4K at some point. I'm not worried about the deluxe super duper box set with Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. I've got Conan the Destroyer. I've got them both. But Conan the Destroyer is a bit shit compared to this absolute beast of a movie. Directed by John Milius, written by Oliver Stone, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Earl Jones. It is full-on hardcore Robert E. Howard fantasy, and it's amazing. Fantastic score by Basil Poldoris. The Anvil of Crom is just a doom, doom, doom. The opening is just so good, and you get like that opening shot of the Conan's father forging his Conan sword. I suppose he's not really forging the Conan sword, but you see the Conan sword being forged through like molten metal, and it's just so good. It's Max von Sydow's in it. Who else is in it? Jerry Lopez, Mako, William Smith, who's a big, sort of huge, sort of muscular man. He's been in a lot of like the 80s, like lower budget action movies. Sandal Bergman's really good in this as Valkyrie. I just fucking love this movie. She's the queen of thieves. So good, so good. And I used to have this. One of the guys I used to work with in my old Tesco store, we used to quote it to each other, and I'd be like, "Yo, Nath, what's best in life?" And then he'd be like, "To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of the women." And we used to just do it over and over. Same with Starship Troopers. We used to quote that. And like, "What are you here for, son?" "Mobile infantry, sir." And he shakes his hand. He's like, "Mobile infantry, good man, made me the man I am today." And he's like missing 2 legs and shit. It's just so good. Yeah, but I friggin' love, absolutely adore Conan the Barbarian. Just love it. I want the 4K. Then we have at number 9. No, not number 9. Number 6. This is my number 6 favourite film of all time. Is Beverly Hills Cop. Like, this is really more of a new... I say a new addition to the top 10. It's not... I've loved Beverly Hills Cop since I first saw it, but it's only in the last few years I've really come to appreciate how good that the Beverly Hills Cop films are. As a trilogy, they are very, very fun. Beverly Hills Cop 2 has that very... It's a Tony Scott movie. You can tell it's a Tony Scott movie just by looking at how it's shot, the action, the cinematography. You can tell straight away. And it's a good action film. Beverly Hills Cop 3, I love because I think it's fun. I think it's a silly, fun movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, even if Eddie Murphy does. And I think that's one of the big issues with that film, is that Murphy does try to play Axel more straight than he did in the previous two. I need a drink. But what can I say about this fucking awesome film, Beverly Hills Cop? Eddie Murphy's big breakout starring role. Yes, he'd previously done 48 Hours with Nick Nolte and for Walter Hill, but he was second fiddle to Nick Nolte's main character. I think he did Best Defense as well, which was a film he made with Dudley Moore. I can't remember who directed Best Defense now. It might be Ivan Reitman. I'm not 100% sure. But I don't think that really made a splash. And again, I think maybe Trading Places again was another sort of big film, but he wasn't the lead. He was second to Dan Aykroyd. But it was Beverly Hills Cop that made Eddie Murphy the megastar that he was in the 80s and the 90s. Obviously, he dropped off slightly in the 2000s because of some bad film choices. But Beverly Hills Cop's so good. It's just such a fun movie. The action is great. The direction is great. The dialogue is great. Eddie's performance is so good. Then you've got John Aston and Judge Reinhold as Billy, and I can't even remember his name now. I've seen this film so many times and I'm just drawing a blank. But you've also got Bronson Pinchot from what was that TV show he did? It was like two roommates. We didn't really have it here in the UK. But he plays Serge, who's in all three movies, I think, and he's also in the new one, which is coming out very, very soon, and I cannot wait because it's one of my most anticipated films of the year, because it looks like it's a proper throwback to the classic Beverly Hills Cop movies. But Bronson Pinchot was also in True Romance, one of my favourite Tarantino films. Not top 10 movies of all time, but I love Tarantino's script in that. Yes, it's film directed by Tony Scott, but it's Tony Scott directing a Tarantino script. But he plays Elliot Blitzer, I think his name is, in True Romance. He's the guy who's supposed to set up the drug deal between Clarence and the film producer, who's technically based on, I think it was Joel Silver, who's currently watching the rushes for his latest film, which is Coming Home in a Body Bag 2. That's when all shit goes to hell, and there's a massive gunfight in the hotel room. But yeah, so I love it. From the opening where he's trying to buy the cigarettes from the back of trying to sell the cigarettes from the back of a truck, to get into his apartment, find his friend who's just recently been released from prison is there, and then him getting whacked by Mike from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, then him going to Beverly Hills to track down the killers, and it's just so good. I love it. But yeah, like I said, it's only within the last few years that I've really come to appreciate Beverly Hills Cop more for what it is than just a silly 80s action comedy, when it's a lot more than that. It's a brilliantly directed, brilliantly acted and scripted action comedy with there's a lot of heart in it as well, which really helps. Because you can have a lot of these action comedies, especially like 48 Hours. It's a great film. It's a fun movie. But it doesn't have the same sort of heart that Beverly Hills Cop does. Because you know that Axel loves his friends. He loves Jenny. He loves, by the end of the film, he loves Billy and Taggart. That's the one. Taggart. Taggart is the other one. And which is why he keeps coming back to Los Angeles and Beverly Hills in the subsequent films. But yeah, I think there's just something awesome about Beverly Hills Cop that just makes me want to revisit it all the time, and that's why I do, and that's why it's my number 6 favourite film of all time. And now we're into the big boys, the top 5 movies. So, coming in at number 5, and this is a film that I've talked about, and I've shown, and said how much I love it, because I do. It's From Dusk Till Dawn. This film fucking rules all. It is a vampire movie by way of a road movie stroke crime movie, and it's insanely good. And it has, in my mind, George Clooney's best, most laid back, cool as fuck performance. Yes, you could say he's awesome as what's his name in Out of Sight, and as Danny Ocean in Ocean's 11, but no, Seth motherfucking Gecko is his coolest, most badass performance to date, and it was his first big film role of the 90s of his career. I mean, he was huge as he played Doug Ross on ER, and I think he was still playing Doug Ross on ER when he did From Dusk Till Dawn. But it's such a far cry from that character to Seth Gecko. It's just so cool. I mean, you've also got Tarantino, who's actually pretty good as Richie in this movie. But you've got John Hawkes at the beginning as Pete, the guy who runs the liquor store. Then you've got Cheech. You've got Danny Trejo. You've got Harvey Keitel. You've got Juliette Lewis. You've got fucking Fred Williamson. You've got Tom Savini. You've got Greg Nicotero. It's so fucking good. And it's, even though now, like when you look back at it now, it's nowhere near as violent as you really think it is, because the blood is green. There's no blood in it. It's just green blood. I mean, I think it was probably an 18 because it is violent, but it's violent in a way where it's like it's like Evil Dead 2 violence, where it's so comically over the top that you cannot take it serious. But I think it was down to the dialogue and some of the stuff that Richie says and some of the lines that come out of their mouths and stuff would really not make it a 15 these days. It's still quite highly rated as an 18. But I love it. It's got an amazing soundtrack. It's got the blasters on it. It's got... who else is on it? I can't remember. I'm not going to go through the fucking soundtrack. Oh, Salma Hayek. This is the movie I fell in love with Salma Hayek on. Not Desperado. Desperado's a great movie. And she's hot. But Salma Hayek as Santanical Pandemonium in From Dusk Till Dawn is incredible. And the nice pullback twist at the end to show what is the titty twist of the bar is built on top of is it's just like a 1-2 punch. And it's just so good. I know I said I wanted to watch Independence Day, but I want to watch fucking From Dusk Till Dawn again now. That when you get so passionate about a film that you absolutely adore, it makes you think, oh, maybe I should watch that again. Now, I've seen From Dusk Till Dawn like 100 billion times. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And I love the little like nods to certain things in it. Like Harvey Keitel's adopted son is Asian, and he's sat in a t-shirt that just says Precinct 13 on it. And it's just like, that is such a cool little like reference to like a genre filmmaker who makes movies in this sort of vein, being John Carpenter and obviously Assault on Precinct 13. But it's stuff like that I love, and I love From Dusk Till Dawn. It's a silly movie, but it's so badass and so cool. Fucking love it. Number 4, and oddly enough, is the 4th film in a series of movies. Is Rocky 4. Why do I love Rocky 4? Because it's amazing. Rocky 1's amazing. Rocky 2 is good. Rocky 3's fun. Rocky 4 is just incredible. Rocky 5 shit. Everyone knows Rocky 5 shit. Rocky Balboa, amazing. Creed 1 and 2, really good. Haven't watched Creed 3 yet. But there's something about Rocky 4 that just... it's so unbelievably, endlessly watchable that you can just watch it start to finish, end it, and then be like, I want to watch that again. so you can watch another 90 minutes of Sylvester Stallone and Dolph Lundgren going at it for 73 rounds. It's just such a fucking silly film. Is 99% of it is training montage. I mean, I think I counted there's something like 5 montages. There's a montage that leads into another montage by way of song. So where Rocky's training in Russia, which I think was shot in Canada. It starts off with the track War, which is no, not War, training montage, which is done by Vince DiCola, and does the training, and then there's a very, very brief moment between that section and the next montage where I think Adrian arrives in Russia, and they have a conversation, and she's like, "You can do it, Rocco, you can do it." And then it just bleeds straight into Hearts on Fire, where, again, now he's got this fucking rugged beard, this rugged Russian beard on, and he's, like, doing all these lifts and stuff, and Hearts on Fire is playing in the background. It's incredible. And it's probably, outside of Girls Just Want to Have Fun, the silly dance movie with Helen Hunt and Sarah Jessica Parker, probably one of the single most 80s films of all time. It's so good. Paulie's got a fucking robot. Why has Paulie got a robot? Why does it have to... It doesn't make any sense. Robots weren't a thing you could purchase in 1985. It's not like you could go on Amazon and order Johnny fucking Five, and then he'd turn up and you'd change, I don't know, some coding where his voice would go from being what he sounded like to sounding like a woman. It's stupid. It's so silly, but it's so much fun, and it's so rewatchable, and it's just so fucking fun that I've always had this in my top 5 ever since I was a small child, and I love it. And at number 3, we have a film directed by John Frankenheimer. It was made in 1998, or was released in 1998. It stars Jean Reno, Sean Bean, Natasha McElhone, Jonathan Pryce, Stellan Skarsgård, and who else is in this? Oh yeah, Robert De Niro. It's Ronin. I fucking love Ronin. It is so freaking good. It is like, when the film came out, I was quite young. I didn't really get... I say I was quite young. I was, what, 14, 15 when this came out in 98. And I didn't really care for an espionage action thriller. Like, I was into... Like, when I was 15, I was watching horror movies. I was into things like Lost Boys and Army of Darkness and the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. That's what I was watching. And so I just didn't really care for it. I was like, it is what it is. It's a modern action film that's just going to get lost to time, like Patriot Games or something like that. Those type of movies, like espionage movies. But then as I got older, and I think it came on BBC one Christmas, I recorded it off the TV or back in the days of VHS, and I kept it for a while, and I was just like, I'll give it a watch. And I watched it. I liked it a little bit more. It was all right. And then I bought the DVD, and now I'm about 21, 22, and I watched the DVD, and I'm like, this is actually pretty good. And so I watch it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, to the point where I'm just like, I want to watch Ronin. I'll watch it. I want to watch Ronin. I'll watch it. There was one year where I watched Ronin once a month for 12 months. And every single time I watched it, I loved it. And it just shows that, like, if something isn't really necessarily catching you the first time, you can try it again and not write it off. And I think that's what happened with Ronin, because I love the cast. I mean, Jean Reno, I was a huge fan of Leon. I love Jean Reno in Leon. I love him in the French film that's also set in Japan, where he's got really, really strong punch. I can't remember that. It was really good. It's fun. But I also loved Jean Reno in Roland Emmerich's Godzilla. I loved it. I thought he was really good. I love Robert De Niro. I remember seeing Robert De Niro in what was it? Showtime with Eddie Murphy. That came out in about 2001, and I loved him in that. But also really liked Robert De Niro in Goodfellas and The Godfather Part 2 and Casino and just all the stuff that like you'd expect him to be in. I'm not a huge fan of Mean Streets. I mean, it's a decent film, but I don't think it's the masterpiece that people hail it to be as an early film for Martin Scorsese. But Ronin is such a good movie. It's directed brilliantly by John Frankenheimer, who I think this was probably his last but one actual motion picture that he directed. He directed a short called Ambush, which was more a promotional video for BMW. They starred Clive Owen as like a getaway driver, but he was driving a BMW. I think it was a Z3 or something like that. I'm not a huge expert on car brands or car models and stuff, but it also had, I think it was Mickey Rourke in it as well. But the action sequences in this are phenomenal. The car chases probably outside. No, do you know what? I'm going to say it. I am going to say it. The car chases in this are better than Bullet. They are better than The French Connection. They are better than The Matrix. They are better than 90% of the... I say 90%. It's the best movie. It's the best car chase movie. Like, the stunt work that is used in this, when they're driving through France, there's a bit where they're driving through, I think it's Paris, towards the end, and there's a bit in Nice where they're driving through really... The bit in Nice, actually, is where they first grab the case, where they're driving through traffic, but they're driving through really, really, really thin streets as well, in things like Citroens and Audis and stuff like that. It's just so cool. It's also, like, it was written... The screenplay is credited to J.D. Zeke and Richard Weisz. J.D. Zeke only really retains a story credit for this. He wrote the Steven Seagal movie called Pistol Whipped. It's not good, but I can clearly see why he only retains a story credit, but gets a screenplay credit along with a writer called Richard Weisz. Richard Weisz is a pseudonym for playwright and screenwriter David Mamet, who has made some phenomenal like crime dramas, I guess you could say that. A fantastic film which I think a lot of people oversee and don't really know about is a film called Red Belt, which is all about UFC, and that was written by it's not UFC, it's about mixed martial arts and cage fighting and stuff, and that was written by David Mamet and it stars Chiwetel Ejiofor from just a lot of things. You'd know his face. He's in like Serenity and Pretty Little Things, I think it was, as an orgy to two, and Chiwetel Ejiofor. But David Mamet's dialogue in this is so unbelievably cool, and Robert De Niro is so unbelievably cool. Jean Reno is so unbelievably cool. Sean Bean is not unbelievably cool. He is an imposter, but like the way they find out, and De Niro's reaction, and the way he kind of pulls him out as being a sort of like fake, is so good. But then you've got Stellan Skarsgård as a guy who what's the word for it? You know, when someone goes against someone, double crosses. When Stellan Skarsgård's character double crosses them and gets off with the case, and that's how they go on a search and stuff. It's just cool, and the car chases, the stunt work, the shootouts. I love it, and I can watch it whenever I'm bored, and it just, I fucking love Ronin. That's why it's my number 3 movie of all time. Everything, what made it hit the number 3 point is the year where I did watch it month after month after month for 12 months, and that just ingrained it in my brain, and I fucking love it. So, number 2. Number 2 is George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. I've talked about this loads of times. I talked about how I watched this for the first time. on a VHS that I recorded from UK Gold one Halloween, and it blew my tiny little mind. I say tiny little mind. There was about 17, I think it was. This is a film I've owned multiple copies of. This is the second sight standard release, but it's still a beautiful release anyway. So I've owned this version. I own the Anchor Bay Ultimate Edition from America. I owned the DivX Edition DVD from Anchor Bay from America, which was the one I think came out prior to the Ultimate Edition. Then I owned like a very old Arrow video or Arrow Films release of Dawn of the Dead. It came in a black cover, looked like a Vipco release, but it wasn't Vipco because it was actually decent quality. And also I've owned what else was it? I think I owned a VHS copy which I bought from Blockbuster when we were ending our VHS sales and stuff. This is like early 2000s, like 2003, 2004, around that time. But for me, this is, apart from not being the 4K release, it's the standard release, standard Blu-ray release. This is probably the definitive version for me now. It has 3 cuts on it, I do believe. Oh, I own the Arrow release as well, the Arrow White Box 3-disc release that came out around about 2015. No, when was it? 2013, I think it was. 2013, 2014. It was when Arrow had just started doing Arrow Video, so it was like the very early days of the Giallo collection and the Euro sort of stuff. It came out, they released Dawn of the Dead. It had artwork by an artist called Patrick Melton on there, or they also released, I can't even find it now, Day of the Dead at the same time, which I would love to see Day of the Dead get a treatment like this. But yeah, this film, just, I love it. I'm going to show you what's on my wall a sec. You're going to see, I mean, there's a Dawn of the Dead poster right by there. There's my finger. There's a Dawn of the Dead poster there. And I will, when we move, I will be getting a A2 size poster printed up and framed to have as a sort of memento of my love for this movie. Same with the Back to the Future 2 poster, which I've got framed on the wall. And the one thing I'm worried about is, and I'm going to show you this, I've got a very large, I don't know if you can see, oh, am I going the right way? No, I'm going the wrong way. All right, I have a very large Indiana Jones poster there that I've had since, well, the Blu-rays were released, well, the DVDs were released in 2004. I think it was. That has been on that wall for 20 years because I got it from Blockbuster. And when we move, I want to try and preserve that poster because it has been there for so long, and it's something that means quite a lot to me because of how long I've had it and how I had it and why I've got it. So I need to find a way to carefully take it off that cupboard door without ruining it, because I love that poster. But yes, Dawn of the Dead. I adore this film. I think it is the greatest zombie film ever made. I know a lot of people will say that the old George Romero original, Night of the Living Dead, is the best zombie movie ever made. But I disagree. I think it's very much up there, maybe the second greatest zombie film ever made. But I think that when you look at post-apocalyptic zombie films and stuff, you instantly think of something like Dawn of the Dead, where it's about a group of people surviving against an uprising of something that we never thought would be a reality. And it's all about the survival. So they find their place in a sort of utopian, sort of paradise world of a shopping centre, of a shopping mall, where they have access to everything. They can go to the gun shops, they can get food, they can go to arcades, they can go to a restaurant, they can go to a bank and just take all the money and just faff about with it and just live a sort of hidden, comfortable life within the walls of this shopping mall until obviously someone finds that they're there and they want to take what is essentially their home. So it's a fight against them It's a fight against. It's a fight for survival against not just the dead, but also the living. And I think Romero doesn't get enough props for the absolute incredible screenplay that he wrote for Dawn of the Dead. It's just such a good film, and I watch it a lot. I watch it maybe 3-4 times a year because I absolutely love it. I think the music's really good. The music by Goblin is very, very good. I also really like the library tracks that we used in there as well, which were released actually on a CD, and I do have that CD somewhere. But yeah, like I said, I absolutely love Dawn of the Dead. It is my second favourite film of all time, and it's amazing. And it's one of the first films that introduced me to proper adult horror, not stuff like The Lost Boys, which is not technically a horror film. It's a Brat Pack movie with vampires in it. And then number one, technically my favourite film of all time is the second film in this trilogy, but really, as a whole, all three films are my favourite films of all time. It's the Back to the Future trilogy. Back to the Future 2 I love because it was the one I watched more and more and more. It was the one that got me into skateboarding because of the hoverboards, even though hoverboards don't have wheels. It got me into skateboarding. That and when I saw Tony Hawk do a 900 for the first time at the X Games in 1999, I was just like, yes, I'm getting aboard. But Back to the Future, if you're born in the 80s and you grew up in the 90s, but you had access to VHS, Back to the Future would have been one of the mainstays of you watching this, watching VHS. And I love Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future 2. As I would rank them from a technical level, I would say Back to the Future 3 is the best. Now, that's controversial. I'd say Back to the Future 3 is the best because it's the most coherently plausible. I say plausible. It's the most coherent plot-wise. Then it would be Back to the Future 1 because it is amazing. And then Back to the Future 2 is the third one because it does have flaws. Definitely does have flaws, and I think a lot of people would agree that Back to the Future 2 is probably the lesser of the three movies. But I just love these movies. Like Michael J. Fox, for me, was a hero as a kid. I loved Back to the Future. I loved Teen Wolf, Secrets of My Success. What was the other ones he did? Oh, God. But I think it was mainly just Teen Wolf and Back to the Future that I loved. I mean, I didn't even realise he was in Class of 1984 until I saw it for the first time, and his name came up as Michael Fox in the credits of that, well, the opening credits. But yeah, Michael J. Fox in this is incredible. I have a signed photo of Christopher Lloyd, which is in a frame somewhere. I think I may have stored it out to be safe. But Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, amazing. Leah Thompson, first crush, as Lorraine. Crispin Glover, just being weird as fuck. And then you've got Tom Wilson as Biff. Just a great cast. Robert Zemeckis directing. Co-wrote with Bob Gale, who then would go on to write the other two together. And Zemeckis would direct, with Spielberg producing. I just love Back to the Future. And it's a film that I can watch whenever I want. And I think all these films have a place because they're the things that I have memories of watching. These are why I think they're my favourite movies. This is why they are my favourite films. Because I have specific memories to these movies. Like Back to the Future 3, I have a memory of pre-ordering Back to the Future 3 from the video shop. So we could watch it on my birthday, which was, I'd say I was how old? Back to the Future 3 came out in 1990, so I'd say I would have been 7. So when it came out on VHS, I'd probably say I was 8. I really wanted to see Back to the Future 3 for my 8th birthday, so my mum pre-ordered the rental copy from ABC Video, which was just across the road from us when I was a kid, and we got to watch it on my 8th birthday, and that's a memory that's always going to stay with me. I just love Back to the Future. I think Alan Silvestri's score is absolutely stunning and gorgeous. My ringtone is the Back to the Future bells, which go off all the time because people keep messaging me, even though I don't want them to. So yeah, Back to the Future is my Back to the Future trilogy, or Back to the Future 2, or all three are my favourite films of all time, because they are. That's why. It's my opinion, man. Well, that's my opinion. So there we go. That is my top 10 movies of all time. This is my the final part, I say the second part of my top 25 movies of all time. Glad everyone watched it. Sorry this went on longer than I was expecting. I did not expect this to be nearly an hour long, because it is only 10 movies, whereas the last video I think was 45 minutes long and it was 15 movies. But I think I talked a lot about these films, and like I was saying at the start, when you have a passion for film, you do tend to rant or to ramble and to go on. So I just want to thank everybody for watching my videos. It's a great community we've got here. I love some of the comments and everything. There are a couple of wanky comments, but I don't really care. I just wanted to bring that up at the beginning, that opinions, everyone's got an opinion. If you are against someone else's opinion, then that's your opinion. Then fuck you. But anyway, thank you everyone for watching it. This has been a very long ass video. I've been standing up for the last 55 minutes. I need a drink, I need a cigarette, and as it's 4 minutes to 4 in the morning, I'm gonna go to bed. So as usual, thanks everyone. If you enjoyed it, like the video. If you want to subscribe. If you want to get notifications, do the notification thing. My upload schedule is just random whenever I feel like doing it. So as usual, I am going to throw up the peace sign, give you a salute, and tell you I'm out.